Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. Today we are going to talk about the state of the economy and whether we have reason to be sanguine or to be nervous. As you know, we've had a very disappointing budget. The finance minister, of course, remains cocksure. She refuses to admit that her exhausting budget was just too long and said, this is what she says, every aspect of the economy warranted a careful response, which is why she spoke on and on and on. And she also told Parliament that green shoots are visible. What do green shoots mean? It means signs of little early signs of recovery. Well, good luck to her. All of us pray that her words are correct, but I think what we need is not so much of articulation about explaining what is not really a path-breaking budget or talking about green shoots, but action and anticipation rather than just talk and articulation. So what are we looking for? One of the things that we are looking for is what is making the markets really nervous. And let's not go by stock indices alone, because there are various things that affect liquidity in the country and what happens to people who need money to be able to invest again to grow businesses. So what is today causing a sense of panic and urgency is Yes Bank. It is the fourth largest bank in the country in the private sector, and as everybody knows, ever since the exit of Rana Kapoor and a series of independent directors, it's been iffy about where it's going, whether it's going to turn around, whether it can raise funds. It has made several attempts to raise funds. It hasn't worked. In November, it put out a list of investors who had apparently made binding bids. Some of them were downright shady. Nothing came out of it. Now again, just yesterday, which is the 12th of February, Yes Bank has said that it wants more time to declare its results. So it's asked for time until 14th of March. It has put out another list of more marquee investors who it says are interested in the bank. Now, it's not that Mr. Apneet Gill is not doing a lot of work in trying to revive the bank. He is. He's obviously working overtime, and he has also appointed Anshu Jain, the former head of Deutsche Bank and now heading Cantor Fitzgerald, to find investors. But the going is tough. As you know, a few months ago, we had written about how foreign investors want a nationalization of Yes Bank. I mean, come on, okay? It's bad enough that we, the people, and public money is being invested all the time in bailing out public sector banks. It's what, 4 lakh crore? And then you're going to now invest in cleaning up the dirt of the private sector as well. So we at Moneylife definitely are against it. And don't forget, IDBI Bank, technically a private bank, has already been bailed out just recently by LIC and by the Government of India. As I said very recently, 42,000 crores has been the cost of bailing out IDBI Bank alone. And it's not even about to turn around. It's getting there. And we hope it gets there. Will the government's money ever come back? Even if it sells the bank, we don't know. So we are not at all happy about any solution that talks about bailing out Yes Bank by getting State Bank of India to take it over, as some people suggested, or the Government of India nationalizing it. I think people have begun to understand that the government's stand on this is absolutely correct. Does it mean that the government can just sit down and wait? I don't think that is possible either. The government has done it twice before, and it is disastrous. Okay? So the private sector is beginning to realize that it needs to do something. Before that, let me mention that there are a series of investors who may be interested, but they probably want to know what else is there for Yes Bank in the form of support. The head of a leading institution had also told me that we don't know if the dirt is all out. That will be clear when the results come out, and the results have got postponed, right? So the head of a very respected organization and one of the most respected names in the financial sector has apparently come up with a proposal. What I hear is that it has been proposed to the Reserve Bank of India that the private sector for the first time will talk about chipping in to bail out Yes Bank partially. So a few private sector banks have informally talked among themselves about the possibility of putting in 2,000 crores each. They want State Bank of India to chip in with a little more at 5,000 crore. They would get a seat on the board. They would make a commitment not to sell their equity for at least 2 years. And if this happens, and it's supported and blessed by the RBI, then there's a good possibility that some of those marquee investors who are today looking at Yes Bank may be interested. The RBI apparently has this proposal and hasn't reacted to it. It's silent. And this is what gets a little worrying, because this government, which takes such pride about decisive action, has been strangely dragging its feet when it comes to anything in the financial sector. And that has disastrous consequences, to my mind. If they don't decide on what happens with Yes Bank, there will be a liquidity freeze once again, and these green shoots that the finance minister is talking about will be trampled and crushed before they grow. You need action. And let me now go back to what else has happened, which is so slow and dragging the sector down. One of them, of course, is, I've done any number of video blogs on infrastructure leasing and financial services, but this is a classic case where the regulator was found sleeping. Action is slow, incompetent, and unclear and hesitant. It's too many adjectives, but that's a fact. In fact, just 2 days ago, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs approached the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal asking for another 270 days. Now, let's look at the history. il&fs began to default in September 2018. On 1st of October, the government sacked the board and appointed a new board under Uday Kotak. Ever since October 1st, 2018, there is a slow process of resolution of this huge financial conglomerate with over 347 companies. The number of companies has come down now because they've shut down a lot of them, and the outstanding debt is over 94,000 crore. This was crying out for an out-of-the-box solution. Instead, the government decided that it has a brand new bankruptcy bill. It will push it through that process. But it is complex. What has happened until now is not one penny of the money raised has been dispersed. So il&fs's new management has managed to collect about 7,000 crore through various means. It has also sold the wind power assets to Oryx. All this is sitting in an escrow account. Nothing can be dispersed. And who's affected? Bunch of mutual funds, pension funds, provident funds, including defense services funds, are locked up. Nobody gets their money back with or without a haircut, which means a discount. Why? Because they have chosen the wrong module. Now, if the government had come up with a very il&fs specific solution, maybe a new statute, pushed it through Parliament the way they are able to push through all kinds of bills which are not necessarily good. If the Aadhaar bill can go through Parliament in no time, why not a bill which is a specific purpose bill for the resolution of il&fs? We know that they did nothing. We know this is a 2018 problem. All of 2019, we knew that Diwan Housing Finance Limited was in serious trouble. There was a scam over there. It took a whole year before the government woke up and admitted that there are underworld links, there are diversion of funds. Even though this has been exposed by the media, we have written about it. There was a Cobra Post expose. But for 1 year, the government dragged its feet before it finally sacked the board. Even today, there is finally an arrest, but action is slow. So you had one huge collapse in the non-banking financial sector in 2018, another in 2019, which is Diwan Housing, and we do not want the third one in 2020, which is Yes Bank. We think Yes Bank has a chance. We think the government needs to wake up, act, lend support in some way, and if private sector is also, why is the private sector now putting in some money to bail out Yes Bank? Not because they're feeling generous. In fact, having people from the private sector, competitive banks on the board is going to affect Yes Bank a bit, but it's a question of survival. And private sector banks may be persuaded to do this if RBI throws its weight behind it, only because the systemic issue affects them all. And they don't want this problem hitting them for the third time because it sends things back. This government has to be as concerned about pushing the economy forward. This is the promise they made in 2014 of economic reforms, of better governance. We need to see action. not just against defaulting industrialists, but also on these fronts. And what is worrying is whether the RBI is going to react in time. We at Moneylife, through our NGO entity, Moneylife Foundation, had made a suggestion to the Reserve Bank of India about what it could do with Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. This was another big bank, very well run, 120 branches, core banking software, which just collapsed and took people's savings down. Even there, the top depositors agreed to keep their money in the bank for 3 years. A proposal was made to the RBI. There would be some takers to buy the bank, but all these things need support. The cost of keeping those 120 banks alive without doing any business is 1 crore a day. And it is moving so slowly. The RBI has in fact gone to court, to the Supreme Court, against an order of the Bombay High Court which looked at faster liquidation of HDIL assets. One company, HDIL, has caused a 6,500 crore scam over there. And so RBI doesn't want those assets liquidated very fast to make payments, but it is working so slowly at changing the rules. So in this budget, it got more powers over cooperative banks. It's taken another small step by allowing cooperative banks to convert into small finance banks. We need faster action. But even appeals to the Prime Minister's office and the Finance Ministry have not made a difference. While the government is quick on a lot of fronts, in fact, quick to the point of being hasty, intemperate, and causing problems, when it comes to the financial sector, it is so slow, and we cannot afford another setback. So let's hope something happens with the Yes Bank and that there is quick action to find a solution. Thank you.